Welcome everybody, this is Ryan. I'm doing my second PowerPoint tutorial with you today. This one is about the comparison strategy, which a lot of us use in social studies and language arts classes. And we've all done Venn diagrams before. So this is a way to be able to use PowerPoint to sort of make it more of a teachable moment. If you notice, one of the problems with PowerPoint as opposed to using other devices is that PowerPoint is very linear, so you have to go from one step to the next. And so if kids often come up with different ideas, and you've already preset where you want things to go with PowerPoint, it's a little bit rigid. And so here's a way to be able to sort of add some to be able to help that process on a little bit. So Venn diagrams, you're familiar. I don't know if you, I was doing some research on Venn diagram and I actually found the guy John Venn, and I thought this was interesting. In 1881, here it is at the church that he worked. He even has a Venn diagram of him. I thought that was kind of interesting. And so when I introduce it with my students or I do trainings, I show some basic ideas of the Venn diagram. So here's a funny one showing the friendship paradox, sort of that small amount of people who I can be friends with. And we also have the triple Venn diagram. Here's another fun one about jolly, green, and giant. And this sort of goes the higher level scales and be able to how to find multiple comparisons. So like what's jolly, green, and giant? All three of them is a frozen vegetable mascot, but then you have your other side comparisons. And so in my social studies class, like I do an example here, if I'm talking about, I want to compare the two different ideologies of the communists and the fascists in the pre-World War II era, and which components were exactly the same. Now, we could brainstorm and have the kids come up with ideas, but in this PowerPoint strategy, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up an example of one of them. So I have animated this, and I asked the students which one believed in a classless society. The students can think on their own or do a think, pair, share, and then give us an answer. And then the answer here is going to go over to the left-hand side. So it's going to, the communists believed in that there's no classes. So if I bring up my next one, which one had an official ideology that wanted to control all aspects? Which one is this? And so by clicking the animation, now I'm going to push that one up in the middle. And the more of these that I go through, you can see which one believed in class divisions, and on my click, there it goes over to fascism. The more that I bring up, the more ultimately it's going to be able to go in one spot or the other. And this leads to interesting class discussion. The students can follow along, and you can have that conversation with them and have them go to wherever you have you've decided ahead of time. So let me just show you the rest of them here, and ultimately fill out your graphic organizer here. The fascist, and so the students are part of that process in terms of being able to see where each one of them goes. Now, how you can do this is adding a little bit of dynamic is a PowerPoint tip that I'm going to show you right now. When I escape out of it, you can see that now it creates, there's this large pile of text box here, and this is all done through animation. And like my last tip that I showed you with the animation, you can do some different things. So I'm going to show you how to do this from scratch. So I'm going to go up and create a blank new side up here. So I'm going to go Insert. Okay, so I insert a blank new slide here. And then what I'm going to do is I need to draw a shape. In the Venn diagram, I'm going to put myself doing an oval here. And you can play around with the colors. I'm going to show you back in the previous one that I have, having some difference in terms of colors and some transparency is things that you can play with. You can do that here in PowerPoint, or you can do it in other programs like a Photoshop. Also, I'm showing you this back one again, is I also like sort of the rounded rectangle as opposed to the circles, because when you do the circles, you limit the amount of space that you have. So I'm going to go up to Format. I'm going to change my fill here a little bit. I'm going to make that just a white one. I'm keeping that same. I'm just going to copy this. I'm going to go over and now paste here. And now changing the fill on this one, if I go to More Colors, this allows me to pick a different color, and here's this option for transparency that you can see. So I can say, give me, let's say, a gray color, make this relatively transparent, and there you can see the overlap. I'm going to highlight both of these and center them a little bit. So now I hear a relatively decent Venn diagram. I'm going to adjust this over a little bit to be able to give me some more size here, more space. And now I'm going to come up with some text box. So I'm going to click on a text box up here. The first one I'm going to call fascism. Make that text box a little more, make it wider here. I'm going to do another text box and call this communism. So we have the text box communism and fascism here. But the next thing we need to do is we need to do another text box. And now what we're going to put down here is, this is the description. So I'm going to say classless society. Now we know where we want this thing to go. We're going to want this thing to go over to communism. And so if for me to get this thing over here, you would think that should I start with this here? No, we're going to leave it back here in sort of this place for the bank. And then we need to bring up our animation. So up in the top here, I'm going to click on animation and then custom animation. Now on the previous, I showed you in an earlier one how to be able to make something exit. So I'm going to click on the text box, and now I'm not going to have it enter, and I'm also not going to have it exit. What I'm going to do is I'm going to have this last one here called motion path. Motion path can make an object move, a text box or any object. So you can have things, you can see different directions, up, down, left, right. I'm going to go draw a motion path, and I just want a straight line. I'm going to dictate where this can go. So I'm going to click on line, and then from the middle of my text box, I'm going to drag this, and where do I want it to end up? And if I let go, you can see it ends up over there. And if I put this in the slideshow now, there's classless society, and on my next click, it's going to move it over to communism. I'm going to get out of this here. Now, if you remember in mine, there was nothing there to begin with, so I actually do need this text box to enter. I'm going to go to back up to add to my animation. I'm going to add effect. I'm going to go entrance and give this thing. I'm going to say let's have that fade in. But we need to think about your order of operations over here. I'm having that thing come in afterwards. That's number 2. I want that to come in first, so I can simply down the bottom here reorder and move that. The animation to have it show up as number 1, and then have it move to the box over there for number 2. So now let's do the slideshow view, and we click 1, the fade in, click number 2, and head up to communism. So that's the difficult part. If I get out of this, the next step that I do here is if I copy the text box, as I copy here, and now when I paste, it's going to copy classless society. I'm going to move this down just a smidge so we can see it. And look at these lines here. That's my animation lines. The animation all stays with it. And I can change, let me change the content in here. Believed in different classes. Move that over a little bit, so that's in the middle. And so that's going over to communism. How can I get this thing over to fascism? Instead of redrawing everything, if I just click on that actual line of that motion, and I drag him over here, and now I go into slideshow, click once, classless society, there's our first one that we did. Click a second time, which one believed in different classes, and that one goes up over there. And you can see I would probably want to be able to change my text box to have it on different lines. So I'll put believed in and then on different classes on the second line to make it fit better. But a relatively easy way to be able to create this sort of interesting way of looking at comparisons. Hope this one helped. If you guys have any questions, feel free to drop me a line. Thanks.